Okay, folks, we're ready for our latest podcast for the E-Trans Am Championship. Jonathan Green here. And today I've got a special guest on, a fellow European, a Swede no less. And his car, number 46, is just behind me. His name is Carl Rydquist. He's been tearing up the circuits from Road Atlanta to Sebring and Daytona. And we're about to head to Barcelona. And I've just got a feeling in my water that this is Mr. Rydquist's breakout weekend. Carl, welcome
Thank you.
to the Trans Am Series, and especially the E-Series. First and foremost, how are you finding it? I know it's a bit of a distraction, but everybody's taking it pretty seriously.
Yeah, I'm finding it exciting and time-consuming more than I thought. First, I came back from the Lime Rock race, and I went to dinner with my family, and I said to my wife, "Hey, this is really nice. Normally, I have a long, dusty drive, and I got, come home late at night, 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. just so I can have breakfast at least with the family. And like, I'm right here and we can just, hang out with the kids." So that's lovely. But then you realize that the competition level is going crazy once people are getting into control. The first few events, I think we've seen it. And I think as we progress, I think drivers are getting better and better at the sim racing. And then the racing turns into real racing. And all of a sudden you gotta put your head down and analyze everything to go quick.
Yeah, no question. But you have, I'm right in saying, a good, strong, solid sim background. You've been doing this, well, since a kid for fun, but you do it seriously.
So kind of. I started out as a kid with being completely obsessed with an oval game called Indy 500, and you drove it with a keyboard, but you could dial everything in there. You could do individual wheel angles, you could do all the wings, aero, you could do pack gears even for the spring setup, all your shocks. And I mean, I was just a kid at the time and had to figure that out. And there was no Googling to get, setups from the internet or anything. It just didn't exist in that time. And I had to figure that out to be able to out-qualify the AIs. And you couldn't change the pace of the AIs either. So I guess that gave me something. And then I just had fun with sports car GT, endurance racing. But I did have a long break. I did have a break of almost a decade before this came up. And I think that's why I've been scrambling a little bit to, get the equipment that you need now in 2020 as compared to, 2008.
So what is your 2020 spec? The car behind you looks fantastic, but what are you powering it with?
Yeah, so now I'm using an MSI gaming computer with a 9700K processor, and that's really the key. The processor in Assetto Corsa, and I think a lot of other games, when you drive in a big field like Trans Am has a very large starting field, which is exciting, but it's a lot of computing power required to move all those cars around the track. So you need this motherboard, and I didn't have that when I joined the series, and I just got that and made a big difference. So having that strength and the ability with the K that gives you the overclocking capability, that allows the computer to work on turbo during these busy races, and it can process all the stuff, and you can get the frame updates you need to have your visual cues fast enough. And I use currently a Fanatec pretty entry-level base for a wheel, and I ordered a nice D-shaped Alcantara wheel. Same shape that I have in the race car, actually, so I could switch them out, and it's just a logo. I literally think it's the same brand, and they just changed the sticker on it. So I typically run Sparco gear, so Sparco seat, Sparco steering wheel, and safety gear in my suit as well. So I like their stuff. They're locally in California. They ship to the US really easy anywhere. They're very responsive, good team out there. The Fanatec goes through the pedals as well with the load cell. So it's pretty. It's not something like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool and unique. It's pretty much like mainstream stuff. I did switch over to VR. In this time, everything is sold out everywhere, or prices are being gouged, right? So if you can pick something up at a decent price, I think it's a time to get it. I went with a Samsung VR headset. It's considered like a 1.5 in terms of generations, and the latest ones are in 2.0, but I think it was very good on the visuals and the lenses for its time, and that makes it an incredible experience.
Did you have any problems getting used to it? We were talking to Edward Savazzi, and he really struggled with the motion sickness.
basically for a day or two. It wasn't as much the motion sickness, but getting it to run fast and feeling. But I noticed right away, literally the first lap, so I could put the car on the same curb, and it was a skinny curb, this one, every lap, where before I would either be a little bit touching the grass or a little bit like shy of being out there. That was the big difference. And then I started dealing with settings because my computer wasn't powerful enough, and it got a little blurry. And the blurrier it got, the more motion sickness I became. So I actually pulled it off again, put it back in the box, put up my screen again, went back to drive, but then I already was used to the 3D world, and the screen just seemed totally awful. And I just went back down into the sim and said, you know what, this is like wearing an opposite helmet. You know, the pressure point around is exactly the same as your helmet.
Yeah.
You're just not having the pressure here. It's like the inverted helmet. So now it's the feeling of putting on your helmet, but it's like the reverse helmet. And there's my new world. And I think VR is the future, to be honest. I was on the fence before. I like 3 screens too. I think it's lovely and comfortable. But I think VR is the future. It's just getting so good.
Mm. You mentioned to me in our correspondence that you've just written for a Swedish magazine about the experience of e-racing. Tell me, I mean, we do have quite a combination of youngsters who do sim racing, all the way up to someone like Boris, who's been in the NASCAR simulator and has worked professionally with that, and Mark Miller likewise, to casual or professional racers that are trying sim racing for the first time. You talk about the transition between real racing and sim racing. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my perspective, and I've just kind of gone through this over the last couple of months here with Trans Am, and to start a little bit sooner, I was also asked by my company to run on some of these really expensive rigs, and I was in your home country at one of the F1 teams using one of their platforms that they use for running at the Nürburgring for vehicle development purposes. And what's funny is like they have these enormous, huge screens, right? And the whole platform is moving up and down, and you're dialing in your slip and everything. And just moving back again to like the VR, I think you can get the whole visual. Like I would almost, if I were them, I would take away the big screen, go to the VR headset, but use the motion platform. But that's where my transition to modern sim started again. It was basically in Q3 last year, and then getting in with Assetto Corsa. And I think what I'm noticing is across the field and myself, and like I'm you know, speaking in the same sentence as you just mentioned, you know, Mark Miller and Boris Sad is legend, is, you know, it's humbling, right? But at least from my perspective, I shared with the readers that first the setup that I just talked about, the hardware is really important, and for, you know, the right stuff in terms of being able to have a good experience online. But then in terms of replacing your cues, and I'm an engineer and I analyze a lot of things, and I've been racing for many years. So I think I can, you know, at least speak to some of the factors that make you drive well and not. And what happens is immediately you get in a sim first, you start driving and you're understeering and you release the throttle and expect the weight shift and the understeer to bite back in. And it doesn't really do that in the same way as in real world. And you're like, oh man, I can drive much harder in the real world. And, you know, this is not, you know, working really. And what happens is you're basically losing the G forces and the feedback, and you have to replace it so much with the visual cues and the audio cues to some extent, your force feedback, but then there's other things you can put into the screen as well that needs to replace like what you usually feel with your behind, right? Your back and your butt basically, and your shoulders and all that. That stuff is gone, and you need to allow yourself the time to pick that up somewhere else. And I've been noticing here, going from, you know, somewhere in the midfield to maybe somewhere in the top 10 right now in terms of the pace, that replacement bit by bit and getting used to the sim ones put me back in the driver's seat again of the real version of the car that's right behind you there. And all of a sudden I'm able to start racing again. And chit-chatting offline with some of the great guys like, you know, Josh Hurley. He talks about comfort, and he's very, very comfortable in the sim, just as he were in a real car. He didn't say exactly those words, but he said he had a high level of comfort, and that's why he was driving the way he was driving. And I totally get that as I'm coming to this point. And I think every driver has to go through it. And some people have been working a long time. We see it in IndyCar. We see F1 drivers, and we see some of them do crazy stuff, right? And it gets all over the place and viral. And, you know, that guy just came in from the real world, and he hasn't replaced, you know, his cues yet. And then he's racing with another guy who's already completed the transition. So there's a total mismatch. And I think we're seeing through the Trans Am field, the depth of transition is just growing. And more drivers are experiencing and executing like fantastic racing. And the championship is just getting like really, really good.
I think that's it. I think, you know, when we first started, and I've talked to a few drivers about this, you know, it seemed like a bit of fun. But when you realize, and we'll talk about your car next, that you're putting proper liveries on with your actual sponsors in the real world, with a view to taking those forward to our real championship when we get off and begin again. So, and of course, you are racing your actual competition that you would be racing against. So I think it's sort of gone from being a bit of fun to being out and out, wholly competitive, and everybody desperate to win.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And part of winning is, and that's one thing I enjoy. Part of winning is also surviving. So it also has cleaned up the driving, particularly like up at the, you know, top 10, I see a lot less incidents are taking place. And when they happen and, you know, you roll back in the field and you have to come back again through the field, then you witness more activity going on. And then as you come up towards, you know, the top 10 again, the activities are reducing a little bit. So it definitely comes with just being able to complete that transition. And I think that everyone is capable of that in the field. You know, everyone has proven their speed on the real racetrack, and should be able to repeat that in the sim too. So I think if you see someone who's not quick in the sim, that doesn't mean that they're not quick on the real world. It's just literally like they maybe not have spent the hours to complete that transition. So it's really exciting to see who suddenly pops up on a weekend where you're like, well, he used to be like number 18 and now he's like up here at number 8. And that's cool to see. And it's just, you see the laps counting too on our off, you know, behind the scenes practice. It's very cool.
How many hours are you putting in terms of getting prepared for these races?
Not enough. But, you know, I have 2 little kids. I have work. I'm fortunate enough to have a ton of work, you know, working from home during the situation here with the world. And I need to drive when the kids are sleeping. So I get a couple hours in at night, and then I got to go to bed. And some nights I need to not be doing it because I also need to spend, you know, some quality evenings with the wife and like talking, you know, about kids and schooling and just like life in general.
Sure.
So it's not enough, and some nights I actually need some hours of sleep too. So yeah, I envy those that can drive all day, but I put in, you know, probably 2 hours every other night.
Now, as I said at the top, I've got a feeling in my water that this could be a big race weekend for Carl Rydquist, because you've got a lot of real world knowledge, probably more than most, of the Barcelona circuit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks. That's cool. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to run a 24-hour race there in 2011. It's a long time ago, but we were 3 drivers sharing a Porsche GT3 there, a German team called Steam Racing, and Hankook Tires had helped me out at that time. You can blur that out. So I raced for, you know, got a lot of hours of racing down there, and I showed up early because of the jet lag and everything. I wanted to be in good shape. I went jogging around the circuit, and it's very distinct, the atmosphere over there. Catalunya is beautiful. Montmeló, where the track is located, is amazing. And you jog around, and you have you know, this particular scent of the pine trees and the eucalyptus, and, you know, warm 27 centigrades, you know, up in the 80s, jogging there. It's such a lovely feeling. And then I got into the sim with my VR headset, and Assetto Corsa has a LiDAR scan for this track and a number of tracks. And it was just so good and so real, and it was a beautiful sunrise, you know, and I went up on the high part to take a couple of screenshots for my sponsors and the article that I wrote, and I could look out over the you know, the mountains and down towards the ocean. And I stayed at that ocean with my family for multiple weeks as well, doing car testing south of Barcelona. There's a large test facility where most OEMs go. And I've been there so many times, so many weeks. I kind of felt like I was there all of a sudden. I could almost sense the scent. And I was cruising around the track, just kind of like taking it in and loving it. And And I really wanted to hop on and be like, guys, Barcelona is amazing. I want to go on Discord and say, hey, let's meet at the bar afterwards and I'll buy sangria for everyone. I'm loving it. And then I had to take out the headset and realize, like, sorry, like these guys are sitting in Florida and Hawaii and, you know, SoCal and, you know, Midwest, Texas, like everywhere. And I was like, man, we can't do that. But man, I would love for all of the guys to just go and gather there, you know, with the Trans Am and the tour crew. And that would be such a great time. So I do have a nice vibe coming in there. There's a couple of parts, like I think I was pretty early to nail some lines, but obviously, you know, people are catching up, and you know, I think I'm where I'm supposed to be right now in terms of times.
It's interesting you say that, because I've been there physically myself for MotoGP and Formula One. And what I love about Barcelona is it's an ancient city. It's had the Olympics. It had the old Montjuic circuit there. It's got a lot of history in motor racing. But you're right. It's got this old city. You've got the beaches there. And then literally an hour away, you can be in Andorra and on the mountain skiing. It really is a beautiful place to go racing. And I was saying in another meeting, I would love to see actually Trans Am in reality going to the Barcelona circuit with that huge long straight and over 30 cars going down that. The noise would be fantastic, echoing around those hills of Montmello. And I really do, like you, share that opportunity would be great. I think they'd love it.
That would be so cool. Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, there's much to see there, you know, like if anyone has a chance to go there, race there, take it and go sample some of the small beach towns as well south of the city. It's really gorgeous.
So let's talk about, we're in the fourth round. It's starting to get into the nitty gritty. You're in the top 10. You're 10 points ahead of the man behind you, Dylan Archer. What do you see for this weekend? How has practice gone? And tell us a little bit about the cars and the sponsors that you've got on board for the championship.
Yep. So we definitely want to do well in the championship. I think in the beginning, I just started out kind of having fun with it, and Laguna was challenging for me. Road Atlanta showed some hope, but again, the races didn't turn out the way they would. But still, the points have been kind of consistent. So yeah, we want to push for our sponsors. On the hood back there, there's a large Factory 5. We have one on the rear window too. We run the Factory 5 GTM. It's the first time.
That's on the back panel, right? Yeah,
it's on the back window, on the back quarter, and there's a big hood 5 there with the checkered, and that's the Factory 5 company out in Massachusetts that make the kit cars or component cars. They're famous for all the Cobras, Daytona Coupe. They do the GTM that's going to be replaced with a new supercar that actually is more of the shape of what you have behind you. They released some drawings that it can run a Coyote or a GM V8 or even a V12 transaxle, and it's going to be a radically cool car. And we're hoping that we can, some of the team and myself, we're putting in a little bit of feedback to some of the chassis work they're doing, just as kind of from our experience. So with Factory 5, we really want to place well for them, as we do with the GTM on the West Coast. And
you're the current SGT champion on the West Coast?
Yeah, you could say that. There weren't enough competitors, I think, to make that an official one, which is a shame. But it's where we could start out. We jumped in June last year, so I'm kind of a newcomer as well. But Trans Am, I mean, it was the most fun race I've done in so many years. The length is good, 70 minutes or 100 miles thereabouts. It's just great. I've been racing some 30-minute sprint racing, and it's just not long enough. It doesn't give you enough of the challenge of the tire wear and the physical stamina. I'm used to the 3-hour running solo 3-hour endurance races and things like that. So it's really cool. But yeah, to be running with the national guys, it's an honor and a pleasure and an opportunity that I want to relish. I want to be both responsible but as well competitive for our sponsors and give them this platform to shine. So Factory 5 is a big one. I already talked about Sparkle. Ferodo Racing helps us a lot with braking, and I've been with them since 2001 in all my championships for endurance racing. And now also sprint racing. They have some new pads that are absolutely phenomenal and basically taking over European GT racing right now. So everyone is raving. That's a patch to check out. We have APR on the wing, looks quite similar to the actual thing here on the graphics. And then for endurance racing, we run, it's important with the lighting. So we have Baja Designs behind us. They make some of the best off-road, but also like GT car type race lighting. So they're all providing, and like any sponsor does for any team. But here we have all their parts on the car, and they're proven in endurance racing as long as 25 hours long. We run the 25 Hours of Thunderhill, and you can see that on the hood. It says Spirit of Thunderhill was awarded to this team once after the car caught on fire, was repaired, and still finished the race. But that is like a true testament when you can beat on a car for 25 hours, run an entire endurance season on top of that, and a sprint season, because the team owner is really crazy about racing, and we run everything we can run with this car, and it still lasts and finishes races all the time. And I think that's like the big takeaway, right? That I like to plug. And the sim is a little different, but we still want to represent and show like this stamina and like the parts they're putting in reflects also in our endurance and mentality in sim racing, to just keep the foot down, stay focused, take the punches, and come back in and try to finish well in the championship. And for Barcelona, I'm hoping to get up there in the top 5 this weekend. You know, you got to realize that all it takes is, you know, one guy in the quarter panel and you're done and spun around. But if it all holds up, I think with the situation right now, that should be the target. With some luck, yeah, might even be a podium possible, but we'll see.
And Carl, I was talking to John Claggett about you. You've got such a fascinating career, obviously originally from Sweden and now living in the States. But why Trans Am? You've done so many different types of racing, and you've got an amazing Wikipedia, if you will, career. But why Trans Am?
So I think, again, what came back to there, the distance of the races and then the legacy of the series. I mean, I still sit here and don't really feel like it's real, you know what I mean? And maybe that would be even more so if it was in one of the specific TA classes as well. Now it happens so to be that the vehicle and the team, we have a GT car, and you know, we're really happy to be able to be part of it. But just the legacy of the drivers that have been in there and the quality of the drivers, I feel like it's the driver pool is more of the professional level pool. Mm-hmm. Specifically now talking about the TA classes, right? And I think there's a lot of places where I've been where maybe that has not been the case. So I am enjoying that a lot. I mean, I do have a regular day job. It's all car oriented, car based, car testing, but I'm not doing racing Monday through Friday. I stopped with that in 2008 already, or 2009. Figured out my Monday through Friday was better off being an engineer and racing on the weekends. But I think that changes when you're in like a factory team or something, of course, because then you're working along the engineers and developing cars and things like that and strategies. But yeah, Trans Am is just amazing in terms of the competition. And what you want to, as a driver, be with where the best are. And it's here parts me, like, if I may go off onto sim racing. Sim racing allows drivers that maybe do not have the funds to travel, mm-hmm. or the teams don't have it, or the sponsors, but they have the talent. They can actually race on like a national circuit, or in this case, international, as we go to Spain.
Yeah, there's no question. And I know you're aware that we're very welcoming of Juan Manuel Correa, who, of course, is a young up-and-coming American, just 21 years of age, who was involved in that horrific accident at Spa last year, but is able, as he is on the men, same with Wickens, trying to do sim racing, and he's joining us this weekend. So you're right, sim racing does give opportunities that you perhaps wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing. I mean, that story is just incredible, and I'm, you know, when someone comes in like that, it humbles you even more. Not only because his pedigree up to that point, but also like for the comeback. And like, you know, a lot of people were just like blessed with, knock on wood, to this day, you know, everything's kind of gone all right. Others get struck by something like that, but that, you know, to see them power through. He's coming in. I was really impressed with Adrian Fernandez in some of the pre-races here. Tony Kanaan already like picking up the speed, and there's been you know, a few open wheel racers that come in, and I think it talks to the quality as well, mm-hmm. of what we're doing, and looking at the front runners here with Kisera and Hurley, and you know, Miller came in with great pace. Rosino is doing great. I think it's just pretty amazing to see like the speed of these guys, and that translates into the big, you know, loud cars on the TA circuit. And it's like it's no joke.
Finally, who do you fear, if you were not fear, but who do you go when you look in the mirror and go, he's next? Who do you fear, if you like, seeing in the mirrors and thinking, oh, this is going to be tough?
In terms of, let's just go in terms of speed then.
All right.
Let's just go in terms, because or should we go a little bit more? Should we throw a little bit more fun statements around here?
Come on, this is it. We want to hear what's going on. We don't get to talk to you during the race.
You know, I was surprised. I had a very different opinion beforehand, but after a few races, Lawrence drives with very small margins.
I like the way you put that.
He's a quick guy, but there needs to be a few more inches to feel safe there. When Hurley and Kisera comes through, on the reverse grid and they come up, that they are pretty careful about getting into trouble because they want to be on the podium really bad. So they will take that extra measure of being really smart about it. And maybe they put more time in so they have that, like, they know they need to stay away. But looking at some of the guys that have won races, that would be my one. But we've chatted about it, and I think he was asking for feedback too here recently from the whole group because he felt like he had a lot of door banging going on, and I don't think it was just him in that case. But it's just it's this transition. You need to have a few feet of transparent bubble.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the videos together and pictures, and you can see there's a foot of air between the cars, but they're already spinning. And that's just like, goes part of the learning. But outside of that, no, I don't want to name him out as like somebody who's like notoriously like I just had an unfortunate run in like two separate sections here nearby each other, and he's fast. So that's the thing. Like you can't just, dodge him or get away from him. He's very quick, as proven by his wins. But so that's the one that's the toughest nut to crack, I would say. If I'm racing with him, he's a hard man to beat. He's fast, and the margins are small there.
Well, I mean, then again, he doesn't know about your risk taking. Look at the office you're in right now. I mean, you're taking a lot of risk. I know the guy that's often in that office, and they've had some COVID cases in that building too. So you're a brave guy.
Yep. Yeah, and it's Trans Am, right? So what one thing is really cool, Mike Holland, who runs myraceshop.com, who's basically behind all the mechanical stuff on this car. He's down in San Diego. He's been working professionally in all the big leagues throughout this year. He drove the car before me.
Yeah.
He has more championships than me in this car, and he's co-driving in some of these endurance races and just gathering more of them. But he told me when we went into Trans Am, he said, "Be careful, man. This is hard racing. This is not your GT3 racing. This is tough racing." So it's kind of nice to be able to learn that too through the sim environment, so we don't have to do a lot of chassis and body repairs on the real car. Like I'm getting to learn. I'm getting a little bit schooled. It was I've had fun with Boris too. Boris Side as a legend, and I pinched my arm when I first saw that he was going to join, because when I drove,
you liked him as a kid, right?
Oh yeah, he's such a hero, and I was driving so many hours as a kid, no work, right? I was driving this sports car GT, and he was one of the names because they had real names at that point for all the AI. So I've been racing Boris Side for some years there as a youngster, and obviously follow his career as a hero. And to ride along with him now is just surreal. It's just very cool. He's a legend. He's got so much respect. I get so much respect. He's a very tough driver, but he's very deliberate and very smart about what he's doing. So I can't wait to see him also like get up to the speeds that he's obviously proven through his entire career.
Well, listen, Carl, great talking to you. Can you win this thing? I mean, there's a long way to go yet. We're not at the halfway point yet. Can you win it?
There is still a chance. There is still a chance. I think on the race pace side, I'm been pretty decent with keeping the times that maybe I don't have like the ultimate lap. There's a few tenths missing for the fast laps that I see. But all it takes is a couple of guys starting to battle, and they will drop the second lap immediately. So the reverse grid could help you out. Anything could happen, and anywhere it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere in the top 5.
Track you want to go to?
Oof. People been joking about the Nürburgring, and I would love to do the Nürburgring with minimal amount of practice. Then I would win that thing for sure, unless there's somebody that has skills out there that I don't know about. But I think
Boris has done it for real.
Yeah, I've been there 25 hours, 5 times, done that, and I've been there doing car testing very recently at a very high pace. I was at that time I was paired with two absolute top drivers and expert at the ring, and we were just exactly on the same on the data logger. So I'm very confident at the ring. Yeah, no, I think personally my favorite, I would go to Monaco and drive, but I think for passing and Trans Am, it would just not be, it just wouldn't make sense.
Well, listen, the number 46, myraceshop.com, prototype development group. Carl Rydquist is the name. You can see the car behind me. He is usually at the sharp end, and I just feel that there's a podium to come from this race, if not a win, here in Barcelona. So thanks for talking to us, and best of luck. Keep entertaining us, and we're enjoying every minute of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Here's to good racing.
Yeah, and while you're in that office, see if you can sort things out for us. I think that's a tougher job than racing.
Just send it through. I'll sign the executive bill right here.
Got it. Thanks, Carl Rydquist. Best of luck, and we'll see you this weekend.
See you. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.